Streams, where the river meandered on the gentle breeze, a sanctuary for those seeking solace and a refuge for the soul. Yet on this day, the serenity was shattered by the grim discovery that had left the community in shock. As the sun climbed higher, illuminating the verdant landscape, investigators combed the area, meticulously piecing together the fragments of Alyssa Feeshipper's final moments. The scene painted a stark contrast to the idyllic surroundings, a chilling reminder that beneath the surface of tranquility, darkness can lurk. Alyssa was a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her life, though simple and unassuming, was a tapestry woven with threads of joy and love. Her presence was a testament to the strength found in authenticity, a beacon of light in a world often shadowed by pretense. Her passion for the outdoors was not just a pastime, but a profound connection to the earth, an understanding of life's rhythms that many sought, but few truly grasped. As investigators delved deeper, the portrait of Alyssa's life began to emerge, revealing the complexity behind the simplicity. Her choice to forego traditional paths spoke volumes about her courage and individuality. She was a young woman who embraced life with open arms, cherishing the moments that others might overlook. The investigation into her death was relentless, driven by a community's desire for justice, for answers that seemed elusive in the face of such senseless violence. Platte County, a place where doors were left unlocked and neighbors' trust was implicit, found itself grappling with the unthinkable. The question: as days turned into weeks, the search for the truth became a collective endeavor. The bonds of the community, once taken for granted, were now the foundation upon which hope was built. In their shared grief, they found strength, a testament to the human spirit's resilience in the face of adversity. Alyssa's story is a poignant reminder of life's fragility and the unexpected turns it can take. It underscores the notion that evil is often not a distant specter, but a familiar face, lurking where least expected. In the pursuit of justice for Alyssa, the community of Platte County was reminded of the enduring power of unity and the unyielding quest for truth in a world filled with shadows. The Platte River, a serene ribbon of water meandering through the heart of Platte County, embraced by nature's verdant tapestry, had long been a sanctuary for those seeking solace. Locals cherished this tranquil haven, a place to fish, to wander the trails, or simply to pause and breathe amidst the gentle whispers of the flowing stream. The river's course was a graceful arc, its shallows shimmering under the sunlight while deeper currents flowed silently beneath the canopy of trees. This idyllic setting, however, was about to be marred by a grim discovery that would shatter its peace. On that fateful day, as the sun climbed toward its zenith, Brian McKinney, a man accustomed to the rhythms of the river, embarked on his customary lunchtime walk. He was a familiar figure along the riverbank, often seen stretching his legs and savoring the natural beauty before returning to the demands of his workday. But unusual snagged his attention, a shape adrift in the water that defied the tranquility of the scene. Drawn closer by a mix of curiosity and concern, Brian's eyes widened as the form resolved into a horrifying reality. Tangled amidst the reeds and mud of the riverbank was a human body, lifeless and partially submerged. The woman lay face down in the shallows, clad only in a bikini top, the injuries on her body a testament to a violent end. Brian, his mind reeling, fumbled for his phone and dialed the authorities, his voice a mix of urgency and disbelief. Responding swiftly, deputies from the Platte County Sheriff's Office arrived, their presence announced by the crackle of radios and the flash of emergency lights. The scene, downstream from the Platte Falls boat ramp, was a familiar spot for recreation, now transformed into a tableau of tragedy. The river's gentle flow belied the brutal reality uncovered that day. Investigators, moving with solemn efficiency, assessed the situation, noting that the water's calmness suggested the body had not drifted far from where it had entered the river. Nearby, the woman's car stood as a silent witness, parked neatly with fishing supplies untouched inside, as if she had merely stepped away momentarily. Officers meticulously cordoned off the area, the bright yellow tape a stark contrast against the lush greenery, preserving the scene from contamination and prying eyes. The woman's upper body lay partially on the muddy bank, her lower half still claimed by the river's embrace. Wounds, particularly around her head, told a story of violence, and the scattered bone fragments and blood stains on the ground confirmed it. This was no accident. The medical personnel, summoned with grave urgency, arrived alongside the county medical examiner's team. The quietude of the conservation area, once punctuated only by the sounds of nature, was now filled with the methodical cadence of investigators at work. The click of cameras capturing each detail, the low hum of voices piecing together a narrative of horror. The woman was pronounced dead at the scene, her identity a mystery. The absence of personal belongings, no phone, no identification, left investigators with little to go on. Yet the nature of her injuries, indicative of blunt force trauma, pointed unequivocally to foul play. The task of unraveling her identity fell to the deputies, who quickly began cross-referencing missing persons reports from the surrounding communities. It was a tedious process, but one that bore fruit with unexpected swiftness. In the interwoven fabric of life and death along the river, the gentle flow of the Platte River had become the backdrop for a story of human frailty and violence. As the investigation unfolded, the serenity of Platte Falls was forever altered, a poignant reminder that beneath the veneer of tranquility, the shadows of humanity's darker impulses often lurk, waiting to emerge when least expected. In the quiet heart of the Midwest, where the Platte River meanders gently through the landscape, a somber story began to unfold, casting a shadow over the small community of Latt County. The disappearance of 22-year-old Alyssa Feeshipper had sent ripples of concern through her family and friends, a concern that would soon turn into a devastating reality. The night before, a call had come in, a call filled with the anxiety of a family desperate for answers. Alyssa, a young woman known for her love of the outdoors, had not returned from a day of fishing. Her phone, once a lifeline to her whereabouts, now rang endlessly until it surrendered to the unyielding silence of voicemail. The absence of her return was a void, soon to be filled with a chilling discovery. At the break of dawn, as the first light kissed the river's surface, a grim scene was uncovered along the banks of the Platte River. A vehicle matching Alyssa's was found, and with it, a body that would later be identified through lab tests and dental records as Alyssa herself. For the investigators who arrived on the scene that day, the mission was clear. Preserve the sanctity of the evidence, for it held the key to unraveling this tragic mystery. As the news of the discovery spread, the Latt County Sheriff's Office, under the command of Sheriff Richard Anderson, swiftly mobilized its forces. Detectives and crime scene technicians descended upon the riverbank, meticulously photographing and documenting the area. They marked out grids, carefully bagging and tagging each piece of evidence, treating even the smallest bone fragments as sacred clues in the narrative of Alyssa's final moments. Their eyes scanning for tire tracks, footprints, or any discarded items that might whisper the secrets of who had been their face, navigating the murky depths for any evidence the current might have swept away. Conservation rangers, stewards of the land, were interviewed. Their observations of any unusual activity in the days preceding Alyssa's disappearance becoming vital threads in the tapestry of the investigation. A timeline began to take shape, a narrative pieced together by the steady flow of the Platte River and the chill of the spring air. It was believed Alyssa had entered the water near the boat ramp, only to be carried downstream by the river's gentle embrace. As the sun arced across the sky, authorities held a press briefing, a solemn gathering where details were scarce, yet the urgency was palpable. The investigation was active, they declared, a call to arms for the public to come forward with any information. In the stillness of the Platte Falls Conservation Area, someone had seen or heard something, and their silence held the key to justice. In the ensuing days, the investigation gained momentum. A hotline was established through Greater Kansas City Crime Stoppers, a beacon of hope for anonymity and a reward for those who could bring answers to the fore. Detectives pursued early leads, reports of unfamiliar vehicles near the boat ramp the day before Alyssa vanished. Yet, as each lead was meticulously examined, they unraveled into dead ends, leaving investigators with more questions than answers. Meanwhile, Alyssa's body was transported to the morgue for a full autopsy. The initial findings, though preliminary, cast a grim light on the circumstances of her demise. As the days turned into nights, the community waited, their hearts heavy with the weight of uncertainty. In the quiet corners of Latt County, the story of Alyssa Feeshipper lingered, a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the relentless pursuit of truth. The investigation continued, a relentless march towards justice, as the community held its breath, united in the hope that answers would soon emerge from the shadows. In the end, the search for truth is not just a quest for closure, but a testament to the enduring spirit of those left behind, determined to find light in the darkest of places. The head injuries were severe, indicative of the kind of relentless, brutal force that only repeated impacts could inflict. As the investigation unfolded, detectives sought to piece together the circumstances leading to Alyssa's untimely demise. Toxicology tests and other forensic analyses were poised to illuminate the time and manner of her death, yet the path to truth was shrouded in uncertainty. On the banks of the Platte River, a scene of serene beauty belied the grim reality that had unfolded. Every piece of evidence, from bone fragments to blood samples, was meticulously collected and dispatched to laboratories, each item a potential piece of a tragic puzzle. Yet, the river itself had become an unwitting accomplice in nature's indifferent conspiracy. Its currents had already washed away much of what might have offered clarity, leaving DNA traces faint, partial, or vanished altogether. With the physical trail growing cold, detectives turned their focus to the people who knew Alyssa best, hoping that personal insights might illuminate the shadows. They began with her family. Landis Shipper, Alyssa's father, spoke with a gentle reverence, painting a portrait of a daughter who was both kind and giving. Just weeks prior, Alyssa had cut her long hair to donate to cancer patients, a testament to her altruistic spirit. She had been planning to assist with tornado relief efforts in Joplin, a town still grappling with the aftermath of devastating spring storms. Her sister, Pam Clark, described Alyssa as a free spirit, a woman with a gentle heart and an unwavering love for the outdoors. According to Pam, Alyssa harbored no enemies, grudges, or signs of trouble in her life. Investigators found no trace of familial discord, no underlying tensions that might have led to harm. Shifting their focus to Alyssa's friends, detectives encountered a chorus of similar sentiments. Alyssa was universally described as easygoing, kind, and drama or risky behavior. When inquiries turned to her romantic life, friends hesitated. not out of secrecy, but due to a lack of notable developments. Alyssa wasn't involved in any serious relationships, and no recent romances stood out in her life. At Casey's General Store in Platte City, where Alyssa had worked for several years, co-workers echoed these praises. She was dependable of the counter. Alyssa's presence was a stabilizing force, her demeanor never hinting at personal turmoil or conflict. To those who knew her, Alyssa's death was an enigma. For the investigators, it was a vexing conundrum. Every avenue explored returned to the same starting point. Alyssa was beloved, her life was harmonious, and her death remained senseless. As the investigation stretched from weeks into months, leads grew sparse, and the fervor of new developments waned. Investigators meticulously revisited all evidence, phone records, autopsy reports, timelines, hoping to uncover a missed detail that could break the case open. Alyssa's last calls revealed nothing but routine exchanges, devoid of any ominous undertones. In the quiet aftermath, as the investigation lingered in limbo, a deeper reflection emerged. Alyssa's life, marked by kindness and simplicity, stood in stark contrast to the brutality of her end. Her story became a poignant reminder of the unpredictability of life and the enduring mystery of human existence, where sometimes the answers remain as elusive as the river's flow. In the heart of a seemingly tranquil American landscape, where the gentle flow of a river whispers stories of the past, a chilling narrative unfolds. It is a tale that begins with the mundane, the everyday rhythms of life echoing through the small communities nestled beside the water. Here, families pause for quick check-ins, their lives intertwined with nature, before venturing out to the river's edge. Yet, beneath this serene facade, a darker story lurks, a narrative of violence and mystery. The autopsy of a young woman confirms the grim reality: severe blunt force trauma, but no trace of the weapon that inflicted such damage. As the days turn into months, the investigation grows cold, the trail But destiny has a way of altering the course of events. In the early hours of December 26, 2011, a fateful call pierces the silence. It is a call that will unravel the threads of this mystery and expose the hidden connections within a tight-knit community. Responding to the call, authorities rush to an apartment in Farrell View, a mere 10 miles from Platte City. Inside, they discover a young woman, only 21, teetering on the brink of death. Her abdomen bears the gruesome mark of a razor's edge, a brutal testament to the violence she endured. Paramedics battle against time, whisking her to the hospital where she clings to life, her fate uncertain. In the haze of recovery, the victim, though weak, utters a name that sends shockwaves through the investigation: Quentin Odell. This name is not unfamiliar. It is a name already etched into the annals of Alyssa's unsolved case. Odell, a figure who had seamlessly blended into the fabric of this small town, was not a stranger to Alyssa. They had worked side by side at Casey's General Store in Platte City, their lives intersecting in the routine dance of daily life. Quentin Odell was the embodiment of the unremarkable. Described by those who knew him as quiet and polite, he was the kind of individual who could slip through the cracks unnoticed. His record was clean, devoid of any hint of violence or criminality. Yet, beneath this veneer lay a connection that would soon be illuminated by the stark light of investigation. Odell's ties to Alyssa extended beyond the workplace. He was more than a mere colleague. He was woven into the community's intricate social tapestry. He had crossed paths with Alyssa's sister in school, shared pleasantries with her father, and navigated the same small-town circles. It was a web of relationships that underscored the familiarity and trust inherent in Platte County's close-knit society. As the new year dawned, Quentin Odell found himself at the center of a maelstrom. During intense interrogation sessions on January 5th and 6th, he began to unravel the events of that fateful day in May. His confession painted a picture of unexpected encounters and inexplicable actions. Odell recounted how he had encountered Alyssa by the river, where she was engaged in the simple joy of fishing. What began as an ordinary interaction took a sinister twist when Odell, for reasons that elude comprehension, feigned drowning. Emerging from the water, he claimed that tension escalated, leading to a violent confrontation. In a moment of chaos, he reached for a hatchet at his belt and delivered a blow to Alyssa's head, a single act of violence that shattered the peace of the riverbank. As the investigation deepens, the community grapples with the shocking revelation that one of their own could harbor such darkness. The river, once a symbol of tranquility, now carries the weight of these intertwined stories. Stories of life, death, and the complexities of human nature. In the end, the river remains, its waters flowing ever onward, a silent witness to the secrets it holds and the truths it may yet reveal. In the quiet town of Platte City, where life once meandered with the gentle pace of the river that wound through it, a sinister shadow had begun to unfold. It was a shadow cast by the actions of one man, whose deeds would shatter the tranquility of this small community and leave a permanent scar on its collective memory. Quentin Odell, a name that would soon become synonymous with dread in Platte County, recounted with chilling precision the events that transpired one fateful day. He described how he lay beside Alyssa Feeshipper, striking her face relentlessly until silence enveloped her lifeless form. In the aftermath of his violence, he dragged her body to the river, the water swallowing the evidence of his brutality. Returning home, he washed away the physical remnants of the deed and slipped into bed as though the night had been uneventful, as though life continued unchanged. In subsequent interrogations, Odell would claim that Alyssa had provoked his wrath, that a word or gesture had ignited a fury he could not contain. He maintained that the violence was unplanned, a spontaneous eruption in the heat of the moment. Yet the prosecution saw through his narrative, noting the presence of a hatchet, a weapon that suggested forethought and premeditation, not a mere impulsive lashing out. Months later, passed the confines of her apartment. Initially, Odell painted a picture of innocence, asserting that he had left her alive after a brief visit. However, as investigators probed deeper, his story unraveled. He recounted overhearing an argument between the woman and her boyfriend, an event he claimed provoked his rage. In a frenzied attack, he seized a razor blade, leaving her bleeding and abandoned. This time, his attempt to mask his crime was futile. The woman survived, and her testimony pointed directly to Odell. The confession linked him irrevocably to Alyssa's murder and the December assault, revealing a disturbing pattern of violence. The authorities acted swiftly, arresting Odell and charging him with first-degree murder and armed criminal action for Alyssa's death, alongside similar charges for the assault. By June of 2012, the case against Odell expanded further. Prosecutors added charges of forcible sodomy based on new evidence of sexual assault, uncovered through hospital records and forensic analysis. The victim's harrowing account corroborated these findings, weaving a narrative of terror and survival. Odell's bond was set at $2 million, underscoring the gravity of his alleged crimes. As the legal proceedings commenced, he remained behind bars, a figure of infamy and fear. In Alyssa's case, however, no charges of a sexual nature were pursued. The autopsy revealed that her death was the result of multiple blunt force injuries to the head, devoid of any evidence of sexual assault, a fact that Odell's own confession supported. Thus, the tale of Quentin Odell is not merely one of violence and crime. It is a stark reminder of the fragile veneer of civilization that separates order from chaos. It compels us to ponder the nature of human impulse, the thin line between thought and action, and the dark recesses of the human psyche. In every shadow, there lies a story untold, and in every story, a lesson to be learned. In a quiet town, nestled within the heartland of America, a community was left reeling from an act of violence that shattered its peaceful facade. It was a confrontation that spiraled tragically out of control, leaving a young woman's life extinguished and a community grappling with the aftermath. Alyssa, a vibrant young woman known for her love of the outdoors, had ventured out on a warm afternoon for a solitary fishing trip by the river. Clad in her bikini top, she was found partially clothed, her body tragically discovered by the water's edge. Investigators surmised that the river's current might have carried away her lower clothing, or perhaps it was lost during the brutal struggle that led to her untimely demise. The community was enveloped in a cloud of shock and grief as the heinous nature of Alyssa's death became evident. Flat County prosecutor Eric Zomd, a man known for his tenacity and commitment to justice, sought the death penalty. He described the crime as calculated and cold. A devastating blow not just to Alyssa's family, but to the entire community. Zond argued that the sheer violence of the attack, combined with the use of weapons, necessitated the harshest punishment permissible under Missouri law. In the courtroom, the state presented a chilling portrait of Quentin Odell, a man who had breached the bounds of trust with unspeakable violence. Odell had known Alyssa through professional circles, a connection that prosecutors contended made his betrayal all the more sinister. They painted a picture of a man whose actions were not isolated incidents, but part of a disturbing pattern of deliberate aggression. Yet, the defense sought to weave a different narrative. While Odell's attorneys did not dispute the gravity of the events, they argued against the death penalty. They highlighted Odell's lack of a prior criminal record, suggesting that the violence was reactive rather than premeditated. The defense warned of the emotional toll a jury trial might exact, potentially swaying sentiments towards capital punishment. Negotiations culminated in a plea deal. On the 24th of January, 2013, Quentin Odell stood in the hallowed halls of Flat County Circuit Court and admitted guilt to a litany of charges: first-degree murder, 2 counts of armed criminal action, first-degree assault, and forcible sodomy. In return, the state relinquished its pursuit of the death penalty. Instead, Odell received a life sentence without parole for Alyssa's murder, supplemented by an additional 100 years for the remaining charges, ensuring he would never again walk free. During sentencing, Odell addressed the court, offering apologies to Alyssa's family, his surviving victim, and the community he had so profoundly impacted. Judge Abe Schaefer, presiding over the case, accepted the plea with a solemn gravity, cementing Odell's fate to spend his remaining days within the confines of a Missouri state prison. Meanwhile, in a seemingly unrelated narrative, Helen Bailey was navigating a different chapter of her life. At 51, she was on the cusp of new beginnings, engaged and planning her wedding. Her days were filled with quiet joy, shared with her beloved dog, Boris. To the outside world, Helen appeared to be living a serene and fulfilled life. Yet beneath the surface, subtle undercurrents hinted at an impending storm, one that threatened to disrupt the tranquility she had carefully curated. In these stories, we find a reflection of the human condition, of lives intersecting through fate and choice, and of the relentless pursuit of justice in the face of unimaginable sorrow. As the community sought healing, they were reminded of the fragility of peace and the enduring quest for redemption amidst the shadows of tragedy. The tale of Helen Bailey, a beloved greed. Her story, once filled with hope and renewal, spiraled into darkness, culminating in her untimely demise. On the 11th day of April in the year 2016, the quaint town of Royston in Hertfordshire was enveloped in mystery as Helen vanished without a trace. Helen Bailey was not a name unfamiliar to the public. She was celebrated for her work on the Electric Brown children's book series, a beacon of creativity and imagination. Her sudden disappearance sent ripples of concern through the community and beyond. It was Ian Stewart, her 55-year-old fiancé, who reported her missing. He painted a picture of confusion and absence, stating that Helen had left without a word, taking with her only Dachshund Boris, their beloved dog. Stewart claimed to have found a note from Helen suggesting she had retreated to their holiday home in Broadstairs for solitude. Initially, the narrative seemed plausible. Helen was known to seek solace in quiet places, especially when immersed in her writing or grappling with the profound grief that had shadowed her life. Her need for introspection was well known, yet as days turned to weeks, an unsettling silence grew louder. Calls went unanswered, and no one had sighted Helen or Boris. Those closest to her, attuned to the nuances of her life, began to sense an incongruity in the story. As suspicion mounted, an ominous truth began to surface, revealing a tale steeped in betrayal, greed, and ultimately, murder. Helen Bailey's life began on the 22nd of August, 1964, in the serene county of Northumberland, England. Raised in a nurturing family, she displayed a penchant for writing from a young age. Her academic pursuits initially leaned towards forensic science, studying psychology at Thames Polytechnic, yet destiny led her to the world of media and marketing. Helen contributed to iconic children's programs such as Rugrats and Garfield, leaving an indelible mark on the industry. In 1996, Helen married John Sinfield, a man who shared her dreams and ambitions. Together, they crafted a life filled with happiness and mutual support until tragedy struck in February 2011. While vacationing in the idyllic setting of Barbados, John met a tragic end, drowning while swimming. This devastating loss left Helen shattered, her world irrevocably altered. In the aftermath of John's death, Helen found solace in words. She channeled her grief into a blog named Planet Grief, a raw and honest exploration of loss and the arduous journey of healing. Her writings resonated deeply with others who had faced similar heartaches, providing a sense of community and purpose in her darkest hours. It was through this digital sanctuary that Helen crossed paths with Ian Stewart, a man who would later become central to the harrowing turn her life would take. By the time of her disappearance, Helen was a woman of substantial means. Her financial portfolio robust, with assets exceeding £3 million and a life insurance policy valued at £1.8 million. These financial details, seemingly innocuous, would soon cast a sinister shadow over her vanishing. The unfolding investigation into Helen's disappearance revealed a chilling narrative. Ian Stewart, the man who had professed love and companionship, emerged as a key figure in a plot driven by avarice. As authorities delved deeper, the facade of innocence crumbled, exposing a calculated betrayal. the discovery of Helen's remains in the cesspit of her own home was a revelation that sent shockwaves through all who knew her. In the end, the story of Helen Bailey is a poignant reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the unforeseen dangers that can lurk beneath the surface of trust. Her life, marked by creativity, love, and resilience, serves as a testament to the enduring spirit of those who strive to find light amidst the shadows. In her memory, we ponder the delicate balance between hope and betrayal, and the profound impact of one individual's journey on the lives of many. In the quiet towns of Royston and Broadstairs, Helen Bailey's presence was known not only through her literary achievements, but also through the tangible assets she held, valuable properties that represented both her success and her future. These properties were not just investments. They were intended to be legacies, bestowed upon Ian Stewart, the man she trusted implicitly. But as the threads of her life began to unravel, her financial security became a focal point in the investigation into the mysterious circumstances surrounding her disappearance and subsequent death. The story of Helen and Ian began in the virtual world, amidst the digital pages of Helen's blog, Planting Grief. It was October 2011, and both individuals were navigating the tumultuous waters of loss, having each lost a spouse. The blog became a sanctuary where they exchanged stories of coping, shared the burden of loneliness, and discussed the daunting task of moving forward. This mutual understanding gradually blossomed into a friendship that deepened into romance, a bond seemingly strengthened by shared sorrow. As their relationship matured, so too did their plans for a shared life. They envisioned a future together, one that included Ian's 2 adult sons from his previous marriage and Helen's beloved dog, Boris. These plans materialized into the everyday fabric of their lives: wedding preparations, shared homes, and family gatherings. To the outside world, they appeared as a couple poised on the brink of a promising new chapter. Yet, beneath this idyllic facade, there lurked shadows of discord, particularly concerning financial matters. These tensions would later illuminate the dark corridors of the investigation into Helen's disappearance. Her unwavering trust in Ian was evident. She named him as a beneficiary in her will and granted him control over her finances. These decisions, made in confidence and love, would later become critical in piecing together the events that led to her untimely end. April 15, 2016, marked the last day Helen was seen in Royston, a day filled with the excitement of wedding plans and venue visits. She left Ian a note expressing a need for solitude and her intention to retreat to their holiday home in Broadstairs. However, she never reached her destination, and her sudden disappearance raised immediate alarms. It was uncharacteristic of Helen, a woman deeply engaged with her work, devoted to Boris, and eagerly anticipating her marriage. The note and her actions on that day became pivotal in the unfolding investigation. Witnesses reported seeing Helen walking Boris between 3:40 and 3:50 in the afternoon on April 11th. This sighting was the last confirmed public appearance of Helen Bailey, and it soon became a critical piece of the puzzle investigators were trying to solve. As the search for Helen intensified, suspicions began to pivot towards Ian Stewart. His assertion that Helen had left of her own volition clashed with the perceptions of her family and friends, who knew her as responsible detectives delved deeper. Inconsistencies in Ian's narrative began to surface, peeling back layers to reveal a more sinister possibility. What initially seemed a tale of a partner left behind began to morph into something more ominous. Investigators uncovered troubling aspects of Ian's behavior and potential motives, casting a shadow over the narrative he had woven. The investigation into Helen's disappearance in April 2016 unveiled a tapestry of deception, where trust was betrayed and love was overshadowed by darker intentions. In the end, the case of Helen Bailey serves as a poignant reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the unforeseen depths of betrayal. It underscores a philosophical truth. Trust once given is a powerful currency, but in the wrong hands, it can become a dangerous weapon, capable of unraveling the very fabric of one's life. In the quiet town where Helen lived, her sudden disappearance initially stirred little alarm among the local authorities. Helen, an adult in her own right, had left behind a simple note, expressing a need for solitude. The note mentioned her intention to perhaps retreat to their holiday home in the tranquil village of Broadstairs, a place where she often sought peace. This led the police to believe that Helen would return when she was ready, and thus, the matter was not immediately pursued with urgency. Days turned into an anxious silence as Helen remained unreachable. Her family and closest friends, however, began to voice their mounting concerns. They knew Helen as a woman of steadfast routines, someone deeply rooted in her community, not prone to vanishing without a word. This was uncharacteristic, they insisted, and the growing pressure prompted law enforcement to revisit the situation with a heightened sense of urgency. The case took a pivotal turn on April 15th, when Ian Stewart, Helen's partner, formally reported her missing. This report marked a significant shift in the investigation. A comprehensive search was launched, engaging both law enforcement and local volunteers. The search parties canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on doors and appealing to anyone who might have glimpsed Helen or her faithful dog, Boris. They scoured parks and paths, familiar haunts where Helen and Boris were known to frequent. Eyewitnesses eventually surfaced, recounting sightings of Helen walking Boris on the afternoon of April 11th between 3:40 and 3:50. This would be the last verified instance of Helen being seen in public. Despite the intensified search efforts, the trail remained cold, offering no tangible clues to Helen's whereabouts or reasons for her disappearance. As the investigation deepened, suspicions began to surface, hinting that this was no ordinary case of a missing person. The focus subtly shifted towards Ian Stewart, scrutinizing the consistency of his narrative. Over time, Ian's recounting of events began to show cracks, small discrepancies that raised significant questions about his knowledge and involvement. A breakthrough came on April 16th, with a piece of technical evidence that altered the trajectory of the case. Investigators discovered that Helen's mobile phone had connected to the Wi-Fi network at the couple's holiday cottage in Kent. This finding was pivotal for two reasons. It contradicted Ian's assertion that Helen had gone there alone, and it cast doubt residents at the cottage was an attempt to fabricate evidence of Helen's independent travel there. Concurrently, a forensic examination of Helen's financial records revealed another unsettling detail. On the very day Helen vanished, Ian had significantly increased a standing order from her personal account to their joint account, from £400 to £4,000. This maneuver did not go unnoticed, adding a layer of financial intrigue to the investigation and suggesting a possible motive behind Helen's disappearance. This financial anomaly, coupled with the technological evidence, painted a picture of deliberate manipulation, raising the specter of a calculated attempt to exploit Helen's assets. As these elements coalesced, they steered the investigation into uncharted territory, revealing a narrative that was far more complex and sinister than initially perceived. In the unfolding tapestry of Helen's disappearance, the threads of deceit, financial ambition, and personal betrayal wove a story that compelled investigators to delve deeper into the human psyche. It is a poignant reminder of the hidden depths beneath seemingly tranquil surfaces, and how the quest for truth can unravel the most intricate of facades. In the quiet town where Helen vanished without a trace, a sinister undertone began to unravel, casting shadows over those who were once closest to her. As the days turned into weeks, the absence of Helen became a haunting mystery, one that demanded answers. Yet amidst the search for truth, Ian Stewart, her fiancé, made a move that would ignite suspicion and scrutiny. With Helen's whereabouts unknown, Ian sought to gain power of attorney over her finances, a maneuver that raised alarm among those who knew her best. As the investigation unfolded, the digital world revealed secrets that Ian could know is related to the disposal of a body, and intricate details of life insurance policies suggested a premeditated intent that law enforcement could not ignore. This digital evidence, coupled with Ian's financial maneuvers, began to form a tapestry of deceit and forethought. The convergence of financial transactions, digital footprints, and phone data constructed a narrative that implicated Ian in more than just Helen's vanishing. It suggested that his actions were not born of desperation or grief, but of calculated planning executed in the shadows of her absence. This pivotal evidence transformed the investigation, casting Ian as the central figure in a case that was becoming increasingly clear in its implications. As the inquiry deepened, Ian's facade of a concerned partner began to crumble. His behavior, particularly in the wake of reporting Helen missing, was fraught with anomalies. Most notably, Ian chose to leave for a holiday in Spain, a decision that baffled investigators who expected him to be at the forefront of search efforts. His detachment and minimal cooperation with law enforcement only served to heighten their suspicions. Upon his return, police scrutiny intensified. Under the weight of interrogation, Ian's narrative faltered. His inability to recall simple, intimate details about Helen, such as the color of her eyes or the address of their shared holiday home, further alienated him from the truth. These lapses in memory were incongruent with the narrative of a grieving fiancé and instead painted him as a person of interest. By July 11, 2016, the weight of evidence reached a critical mass. The police, armed with a dossier of discrepancies and dubious actions, arrested Ian Stewart on suspicion of murder. This decisive move was the culmination of months of meticulous investigation, where each piece of evidence pointed towards a singular, unsettling motive rooted in financial gain. Ian's arrest marked a watershed moment in the case. The narrative shifted from one of a grieving partner to a suspect, under the glaring spotlight of justice. On July 15, 2016, a new lead prompted police to search Ian's residence at Royston Hartwell Lodge. Beneath the garage, sealed beneath a concrete slab, lay a cesspit that held the remains of a human body. This discovery was not merely a revelation of a sea end. The story of Helen and Ian is a sobering reminder of the dual nature of those we trust and the unseen shadows that can lurk behind closed doors. It is a testament to the enduring quest for justice and the complex tapestry of motives that lie at the heart of human actions. In the quiet confines of a secluded property, a grim discovery was unearthed. Hidden beneath the surface, in the murky depths of a concealed cesspit, lay the remains of Helen Bailey and her beloved canine companion, Boris. This was not a scene of tragic accident or misfortune. The meticulous concealment of the bodies, buried in such a manner that they could only be accessed by deliberate excavation, spoke volumes of premeditation and intent. The police, already wary of the inconsistencies in Ian Stewart's statements and hit-turbing, find only heightened their suspicions. Forensic experts were swiftly brought to the scene, and the subsequent autopsy revealed chilling details. Helen had been administered zopiclone, a potent sleeping medication in quantities sufficient to render her unconscious. Further examination uncovered evidence consistent with suffocation, painting a harrowing picture of her final moments. These forensic revelations were pivotal. They not only established the manner and timing of Helen's death, but also implicated Ian Stewart in this heinous act. The evidence transformed fears into reality, providing law enforcement with the concrete proof required to escalate their investigation from a missing person case to a full-fledged murder inquiry with Ian Stewart at its ominous center. On the 16th day of July, 2016, the gravity of the situation crystallized as Ian Stewart was formally charged with murder, obstruction of justice, and preventing a lawful burial. This marked a significant turn in the investigation as he was taken into custody, and the legal machinery began its inexorable grind towards justice. Just 3 days later, on July 19th, Ian Stewart faced the solemnity of St. Albans Crown Court for the first time. Here, the charges were read aloud, and the prosecution laid bare the damning evidence they had meticulously gathered. Forensic findings, coupled with witness testimonies, painted an incriminating portrait of Stewart's culpability in Helen's tragic disappearance and death. It was the commencement of a long and complex legal saga, one that the prosecution approached with unwavering resolve. By August of that year, the investigation's focus had shifted to uncovering the motive behind this chilling crime. Investigators delved deep into Ian Stewart's financial affairs, scrutinizing his interactions with banks and financial entities. Their aim was to unravel the extent of his knowledge regarding Helen's considerable wealth, which amounted to over £3 million, alongside a life insurance policy valued at £1.28 million. The findings suggested that Ian Stewart was acutely aware of Helen's financial standing, revealing a potential motive steeped in greed. As the investigation progressed, on October 12, 2016, Ian Stewart once more stood before the court for a plea hearing. The courtroom awaited his response to the charges, anticipating the next chapter in this unfolding legal drama. The narrative was one of betrayal and avarice, where the pursuit of wealth overshadowed human compassion and life itself. Through the lens of this case, society is reminded of the darker facets of human nature, where the pursuit of material gain can eclipse the sanctity of life. It beckons a reflection on the values we hold dear and the moral compass that guides us, urging a deeper understanding of the complex interplay between human desires and ethical boundaries. As the courtroom drama unfolded, the defense team, led by skillful attorneys, meticulously dismantled the prosecution's narrative piece by piece. They argued that the evidence presented was circumstantial and lacked the concrete foundation necessary to support such grave accusations. Their strategy hinged on casting doubt on the prosecution's timeline and the purported motives attributed to Ian Stewart. The defense posited that Helen Bailey's disappearance could not be neatly attributed to an act of malice. They contended that the changes in financial arrangements were part of a broader consensual financial strategy that Helen herself had initiated. The defense argued that the increase in the standing order from Helen's account was a mere financial adjustment, not a sinister maneuver orchestrated by Stewart. To counter the claims of a premeditated murder, the defense suggested alternative explanations for the presence of zopiclone in Helen's system. They asserted that Helen might have been self-medicating, perhaps to cope with stress or insomnia, a narrative that painted her as a vulnerable individual rather than a victim of foul play. Attention then turned to the physical evidence. The defense questioned the reliability of the cell phone data, suggesting that the connection to the Wi-Fi at the Holiday Cottage did not unequivocally place Stewart at the scene. They argued that this evidence was open to interpretation and could easily have been misconstrued. The defense also tackled the testimony concerning the power of attorney. They argued that it was a routine legal step taken to manage Helen's affairs in her absence rather than an opportunistic grab for control. They emphasized that Stewart's actions were consistent with a partner attempting to handle the practicalities of an unforeseen situation, not those of a calculating murderer. Throughout the trial, the court was presented with a tapestry of testimonies from various witnesses. Some painted a picture of a troubled relationship, while others described a couple navigating the complexities of life together. The defense capitalized on these mixed accounts, suggesting that the truth was far more nuanced than the prosecution's stark narrative. Forensic revelations continued to play a pivotal role in the proceedings. Experts testified about the state of Helen's remains and the toxicological findings. The defense challenged these conclusions, arguing that the findings were open to multiple interpretations and did not conclusively point to Stewart's guilt. As the trial progressed, the jury was tasked with navigating a labyrinth of evidence, testimony, and legal argumentation. Each day brought new revelations and complexities, with the defense seeking to sow seeds of reasonable doubt in the minds of those who would ultimately decide Stewart's fate. In the end, the trial extended beyond the confines of a legal proceeding. It became a profound exploration of human nature, trust, and the shadows that can lurk behind closed doors. It illuminated the fragile line between innocence and guilt, leaving the jury and society at large to ponder the depths of human motivation and the intricate dance between truth and perception. In the hushed corridors of justice, where the echoes of truth often clash with the shadows of deceit, Ian Stewart stood at the center of a narrative that would captivate and ended sharply from the narrative painted by the prosecution, a tale that, if believed, might have altered the course of his fate. According to Stewart, the day Helen vanished was not one of sinister intent on his part, but rather an unfolding of events beyond his control. He recounted to the court a harrowing account of abduction, claiming that two men had forcibly taken Helen from their lives. He confessed that he had withheld this crucial information from law enforcement, believing that his silence might somehow shield her from harm. The alleged kidnappers, he asserted, had demanded a ransom of £500,000, a sum. The defense endeavored to paint Ian Stewart as a devoted partner, shattered by the sudden void left by Helen's disappearance. They portrayed him as a man ensnared in a nightmare, struggling to navigate the treacherous waters of suspicion and sorrow. Yet this portrait was challenged by the prosecution, who meticulously dissected his narrative, seeking the truth within the inconsistencies. As the trial unfolded, the prosecution's scrutiny intensified. They highlighted the discrepancies in Stewart's recollections, particularly his inability to recall intimate details about Helen, details that should have been etched into the mind of a loving partner. The color of her eyes, the address of their cherished holiday retreat, these omissions loomed large, casting doubt upon his authenticity and concern. The defense, unwavering in their resolve, countered with vigor. They argued that the case against Stewart was a fragile construct of assumptions, lacking the bedrock of concrete evidence. They sought to cast doubt on the prosecution's reliance on circumstantial evidence, insisting that the specter of Helen's possible kidnapping had been unjustly dismissed. A pivotal moment in the courtroom drama arrived when the jury was transported to Hartwell Lodge. There, amidst the silent testimony of the physical environment, they beheld the grim reality of the cesspit beneath the garage, a site where Helen and her loyal dog, Boris, had been discovered. This visit imprinted upon the jurors the gravity of the evidence, transforming abstract testimony into a visceral reality. In the closing arguments, the prosecution laid bare their thesis, meticulously threading together the strands of motive and opportunity. They argued that Ian Stewart harbored a financial incentive, poised to benefit from Helen's life insurance and her substantial estate. They painted a portrait of premeditation, describing a calculated plan wherein Stewart allegedly administered zopiclone to incapacitate Helen, facilitating her demise. The prosecution portrayed Stewart as a man of dual facades, outwardly devoted and caring, yet inwardly driven by avarice. They contended that his posthumous actions, both in financial dealings and demeanor, aligned with this portrayal of duplicity. In contrast, the defense clung steadfastly to their narrative, reiterating their assertion of Stewart's innocence. They urged the jury to recognize the absence of direct evidence tying him to the crime, challenging the prosecution's reliance on circumstantial conjecture. As the trial drew to a close, the courtroom lingered in a state of introspection. The jurors, now entrusted with the weighty task of discernment, were left to ponder the intricate tapestry of human motives and frailties. In the end, the pursuit of truth in the labyrinth of human complexity remains a journey fraught with uncertainty, where justice seeks to balance the scales of doubt and conviction. The jury's deliberations concluded with a verdict that reverberated through the corridors of justice. On the 22nd of February in the year 2017, Ian Stewart was adjudged guilty of murder. The decision validated the prosecution's assertion that the demise of Helen Bailey was orchestrated with chilling premeditation, motivated by the lure of financial gain. The subsequent day, on February 23rd, Stewart found himself once more at the St. Albans Crown Court, this time to face his sentencing. The courtroom was a somber tableau filled with family, friends, and those intimately entwined with the case, all gathered to witness the judge's pronouncement. Judge Andrew Bright, in a measured yet unyielding address, laid bare the character of Ian Stewart. The judge's words painted a portrait of a man driven by avarice, describing Stewart as a manipulative individual whose actions were underpinned by meticulous planning. The judge illuminated the dark motives behind the crime, asserting that Stewart's actions were a calculated endeavor to exploit Helen's considerable wealth for his own avaricious ends. With gravity, Judge Bright delivered a sentence befitting the crime's severity: life imprisonment with a minimum term of 34 years. This sentence was not merely punitive, but a measure to safeguard society, reflecting the calculated nature of the crime and the potential risks Stewart posed to future relationships, especially to women who might cross his path. Yet, the story did not conclude with the conviction for Helen Bailey's murder. The shadow of suspicion extended into Stewart's past, prompting law enforcement to re-examine the demise of his first wife, Diane Stewart, who had passed away in February of 2010. Initially deemed an accidental death, Helen's case cast doubt upon this conclusion, prompting a renewed investigation. Authorities sought to unearth whether a sinister pattern had long been concealed beneath the veneer of normalcy. On the 6th of July, 2020, Ian Stewart once again stood before the St. Albans Crown Court, this time to answer for the charge of Diane Stewart's murder. His defense echoed the familiar refrains of denial and conflicting narratives, yet the jury remained unconvinced, rejecting his account as they had done before. Stewart was found guilty of Diane's murder as well. The 9th of February in the year 2022 marked another turning point, as Stewart received a life sentence with a whole life order, signifying his permanent removal from society's midst. However, this sentence was revisited by the Court of Appeal, which amended it to a minimum term of 35 years. The saga of Helen Bailey and Diane Stewart, culminating in July 2022, stands as a harrowing testament to the depths of betrayal and manipulation and the catastrophic fallout of abusive relationships. Ian Stewart's actions extinguished the life of a beloved author and unveiled a grim pattern, culminating in dual murder convictions. In the end, the courts rendered their irrevocable judgment, sealing the fate of a man whose actions unveiled the darkest corners of the human heart. Through the lens of justice, society is reminded of the perilous entanglements of trust and the inexorable path of truth that ultimately prevails. In the shadowed corridors of justice, the haunting tale of Ian Stewart reverberates as a chilling testament to the darkest facets of human nature. Convicted on February 22, 2017, for the murder of Helen Bailey, Stewart was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 34 years. Yet the depths of his malevolence were not fully unearthed until February 9, 2022, when he was found guilty of the murder of Diane Stewart, sealing his fate to spend the remainder of his days confined. This grim narrative leaves behind a tapestry of unsettling questions, not merely for idle speculation, but as a somber reflection on the fragility of trust, the subtlety of warning signs, and the profound capacity for harm that can lurk beneath a facade of normalcy. How does one discern the malevolence that hides in plain sight? And what lessons lie in the aftermath of such concealed atrocities? In the end, this case compels us to ponder the complexities of human relationships and the unseen battles that may rage within, urging a vigilant awareness of the shadows that dwell in the peripheries of our lives.